Hi, everyone. Welcome to Beyond the Current Situation with me, your host, Lily Sanders. I have actually a return guest, Rabbi Yosef Serenbryansky. He's simply known as Rabbi Yossi. Many of you have listened to or have seen our previous or our first podcast together a couple of years ago. Just a little background on him, Rabbi Yossi, underlying his gentle and easy personality is a complexity of understanding and analysis of Torah and creation that brings joy and warmth and clarity to those who immerse in his teachings. He's a true friend and confidant to thousands who turn to him weekly, all of the time, regularly for guidance and wisdom. And Rabbi Yossi, he's renowned for his compassion and his open heart to all who enter his scope. He is born in Melbourne, Australia. He does reside here in New York. And Rabbi Yossi, he reaps the benefits of being raised in a selfless family. He has a large family, extended family of his own today. And he is continues to be dedicated as he was raised in spreading and living and spreading the riches and values of Shabbat Lubavitch movement. And his education was enhanced by many esoteric teachings that are inherent in the Hasidic understanding of the Creator's universe. So without further ado, I'd like to bring on Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi, it's great to see you again. Thank you for being
Great to
here.
be here.
Absolutely. So here we are in these times. We would have to be living in a bubble if we weren't aware of the happenings and events and the war in Israel. And so what better time than to bring someone like yourself on to bring us a sense of understanding. I know you and I just texted briefly last week or 2 weeks ago. And I mean, how could you even speak of peace with all the disturbances going on, right? But uh, you're so amazing at bringing understanding in a way that no one else that I know can. So, in light of that, can you speak to first of all, what goes on right now? What you're seeing go on in, or what you're sensing is going on in the hearts and minds of the people of Israel?
That is a good question. And I guess the best way to answer the question is by feeling. And when you put feelings into words, it's not always the exact feeling. It may limit it to some degree. So I'm going to put it in a general perspective because everyone is going through different reactions or feelings, and often very intense. Life is a journey. And as we go through our journey, we experience different things, ups and downs, connections, disconnections, and they're all part of the life journey. And while we're going through it, we often don't understand what the end result will be or where we'll end up. We may have imaginations or may have thoughts, but during the journey, it's very hard to really see the whole perspective because you're in the middle of something. And what I would say now is we are in the middle of a journey. What's happening in the world now, in Israel, in America, in Europe, everything has potential to be different things, but it's all in the middle of a journey. And so in the middle of a journey, people don't understand why things happen. They know how they feel about it, they know how they react to it, they know what they want to do about it, but that's not always what the outcome will be. So, yes, what I can say is that what I've seen and different people have reached out to me with different worries and concerns, and of all different types, is that it's bringing up strong feelings, deep feelings in different people. And you have the people that it brings up compassion and love and connection with humanity. And you have the other people that it's bringing up the showing the lack of of connection with humanity, and the baseless hate, and the medieval things that people thought shouldn't be existing now are existing by millions of people. So you see over thousands of years, as much as we have evolved, there's a part of humanity that hasn't evolved. It's still the basic love and hate that's baseless. And it's very disturbing, because if that's the way history is, ups and downs, then there doesn't seem to be a way out of this. Yes, of this situation, we'll take care of the situation, we'll do the situation this one way or another, but in the end, where does it leave us?
Yeah.
And so it's very disturbing from a narrow point of view, where you see what's happening, that people are not human, and at the same time, where does it leave mankind? Because these things are always there underneath, they're always around. And one of the things that needs to happen, if we want to fix something, we have to acknowledge the negativity, the problems and issues. So in a sense, the reason all this negativity is coming up now, why this happened, on a universal sense, I'm not going to speak to individuals, but in a universal sense, and it's not just in Israel, it's around the world. All this is coming up to show us that we have still a journey to go and a lot to cleanse. It's there to cleanse and fix. So if we have leaders that understand this and will work on cleansing and getting rid of it, we can go forward. But if we have the same leaders as we've had before, who are politicians or corrupt religious leaders or all these things, we're going to be in the same space.
Yes. You hit a few points. Um, Medieval. One of the things that's so really heart-wrenching is to see that we do see people going back mentally and emotionally and physically back to those medieval times. I think, like, for me personally, haven't we gone way beyond this? And if we haven't, why? And you're bringing to light the very reason is we haven't really, what I'm hearing you say is there hasn't really been that cleansing that we really need
Mm-hmm.
to, and so we're kind of still seeing everyone, to your point, journey with all of this minutia, like you said, the politicians and corrupt religious leaders and people that are still walking in hate and not walking through a loving lens. And profound word, cleanse. Could you tease that out a little bit as far as what would that take for? And again, you mentioned three things, which I could definitely understand what you're saying, whether you're seeing three different worlds here, right? The people that are suffering here and the people that are seeing it here, the people that are acting out there. What would it take as an initial eye-opening for people to be aware that there's a cleanse that's needed?
What it would take is for the leaders of the world to speak about cleansing, to discuss the awareness from this. If we have leaders that discuss the why it's here and how we can grow from it, then society can move forward. But if we don't have such leaders, we go back to where we were.
Yeah, which is why it's horrible to see even leaders here and even like systems and schools and whatnot, taking off the things that seem so small to some people, like in God we trust, and taking those little things out of what I thought this country was based upon, right? Those little things are bringing us further and further away from truth and the love and cleansing of God.
Right.
Yeah.
So within the order of what I've seen over thousands of years, how people go to war for whatever reason they do, and they do it again 50 or 100 years later, the same things. We had a Second World War, and now people didn't learn the lesson, and they're going into another one that people just don't get it. So it would take really a miracle from God to fix society. It won't come from mankind. What we can do as people individually become aware, and within our own life, our own perspectives, we can grow and learn how to move beyond where we were. And that's an individual can do that. But we're not going to change as individuals. We're not going to go directly to change what goes on. There is real evil going on. There is also real beauty and love going on. There's both sides.
Yes.
And then there is love that people have no clue what love is, and they're off balance, and there are hate that sometimes you can transform to love. But there's a lot of things you cannot transform. There are a lot of people who you cannot talk to. It's like a part of their brain just isn't there. Um,
Yeah, I
and
totally agree.
so for whatever reason, we're stuck in the world that we're in,
Mhm.
and God has put us here. And I think it's our individual responsibility to be responsible for ourselves.
Yeah.
And that is a full-time job, because the moment you start focusing on fixing others or complaining about others doing, you stop looking at yourself and stop growing in yourself, and you pull yourself down. And so a lot of people become negative and destroy themselves by thinking they're righteous and fixing other people instead of themselves.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. There's something to be said about, unconsciousness really acting out like with an unconscious person draws you into unconsciousness yourself, right? So
Right.
yeah, so being
So,
responsible for ourselves. So then how would then having said everything you just said,
mm,
what would help someone take that individual journey so that they can manage it and navigate what's going on right now?
well, let's look at it. In order to stop the evil and get rid of it, you have to cut off its life force, where it gets its energy from. So there are governments that support destruction, that to support terrorists, to support destruction of lives financially, emotionally. They give support. You have to remove that. Then the evil dissipates because it has nothing to stand on. People vote in people that are corrupt. We know most politicians, most people are liars. They all the negative things, and yet people vote them in. In other words, people give them life. People give them the ability that makes you complicit. So people have to, just like in society, people have to look at taking away the life force from the negative side. You have to look in yourself. What are the things that cause the negative issues in yourself? And you have to look where they come from, what type of beliefs, what type of thinking. One of the things that many people are unaware of is the energy of the words they use, not just that they say, but in their mind. People use words again and again that create negative energy, that pull the person down, that don't elevate the person. So if a person is not aware of the energy of the words they use, they can't climb out of their own situation,
Mm,
because the words you use in your mind affect your body, how your body acts and reacts. And so I would say that if a person really wants to seriously do something, the first thing they have to be conscious of the energy flow of the words they use. But it's not just the words you use, it's the energy of everything you do, everything around you. There's a flow of energy. And if you don't stop that flow of energy or change the flow and direction, everything continues the way it is. So
Mm.
you have to be open to your sensitivity. A lot of people don't want to be too sensitive because then they get hurt or they think they're going to get hurt. They don't know how to protect themselves. So you have to become open and learn how to protect your openness as well.
Yeah,
And
like
and
almost
the
be open, but also have those boundaries. Well, the world calls it boundaries. I don't use that word very much, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, but the best way to be open is to open yourself and you don't have to let anyone know that you're open.
Ah, okay.
It's a personal journey, it's a personal thing between
Yeah,
you and the creation and the creator. No one has to know, it's no one's business. So by doing it in a private way within yourself, you protect yourself as well.
yeah. And it also then would attract
Other
harmonious.
people of a similar vibration or things of similar vibration without you having to do anything.
Yeah, beautiful. And so when speaking with, had a texting conversation with my
Mm-hmm.
girlfriend who lives in Israel, and um, it's interesting because, and she's always such a loving person. She really deep down, and I really detected this this anger against, when I said that I was going to have a conversation with you and having you on. It was good luck, because the worst is the Jews that are siding with Hamas. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, self hate is the worst thing. And there are a lot of people that have self hate for whatever reason it is. The biggest enemies are not enemies from outside, the biggest enemies are from within. Each society, if the society is united as one, no one can stop them. They're unbeatable. But if within each society you have people who hate the society, they destroy it. In America, you have people who hate America, they're destroying America. In each country, you have people who hate the country they're in. Instead of being thankful and positive, they're destructive. And the same thing among Jews. There are Jews who are disconnected from their Jewishness. They're full of hate. It's self whatever hate it is. I'll just call it self hate for now. And it may be hate because they don't know who they are. They're lost, and so they hate the situation. And instead of looking at it internally and improving, they express it on everyone else.
I think you put it perfectly. Self hate. We
Mm-hmm.
always say that. It almost seems like we hear it all the time, but do we really understand it when we say, like, if you see something, like, if you kind of shift and turn that lens inward, where is that
Mm-hmm.
showing up in me?
Right.
And this is really no different, is what
No.
I'm hearing you say.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Wow. Wow. Because that hate that people put out there in the world and express is really an expression of self.
Mm.
Powerful.
Okay, so there are two different directions in going. You go in one direction or the other.
Mhm.
My grandfather would say, "What is the distance between east and west?" He said, "It's just turning around in the same spot. Just depends which direction you're facing. That's how far it is."
That's great. Just turning around, shifting, just
Yeah.
turning
And
your
that,
view, your lens, shifting the way you process things, the way you think about things, shifting your heart even.
yeah. And
Yeah.
you don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to make big changes. Just change the direction you're going in. So if you're going in a direction where you're connecting with nature, with the energy of creation and of existence and the source of existence, that is holy, that is positive, that creates building. If you are taking your energy and focusing it away from nature, away from the balance of nature, away from the source it comes in, that is destructive. So
Yeah.
it really depends which way your energy is going. And
Yeah.
people don't get that. They don't understand it.
It, this is this is interesting because there are people, even in colleagues of mine and friends of mine, that I'm going to say, because of what they do as people in the media, news anchors and journalists and reporters, because of, I hate to say negative environment, but there, it is kind of chasing negative
Mm-hmm.
news, right?
Yes.
How often do we, I'm not saying they don't report good,
Mm-hmm.
loving, fun news. Of course they do. But let's all be honest here. They're really chasing a lot of negative news, and that's what they bring to the audiences. Um, Even though they want to do it so that we can be aware and make that shift, the real issue is that they're around that negativeness, right? I don't know if that's a word, but I'm going to use it here for these purposes. What would you say for them, how they can take those intermittent shifts? I know that I do that with my clients. Like, okay, now just stop, take a little intermittent shift into doing something that is very self-serving and loving and fun and light. Like, how would you help, let's say, some colleagues of mine that are in the throes of this more hours in a day than not?
Well, it's going to depend on the individual, really, because it depends how much a person is doing the work to do it and how much they're absorbing of it. And
Mm,
that is going to vary. The other thing is they need to be consciously aware of direction of energy. And everything they get, they need to transform by saying, these are negative things happening. I'm reporting on it. But how does it fit into the flow of creation, of nature? Where is the balance in nature? Because the world has a balance of positive and negative. And if there is more negative, positive has to come into balance. If there's more positive, negative has to come into balance. So they need to look at it. So if they create within their own consciousness the ability to look at the flow of where things are going, they can transform the negative energy that they're dealing with to reconnect it to the flow of creation.
yeah. Yeah.
But they have to create their own consciousness and ability to do it and want to do it, because it's not going to happen on its own. For
Right.
some people, it means that once an hour they take a deep breath and they focus where they have to be, maybe once an hour. For some people, maybe before they go to work, they have to put themselves in a framework. And then when they come back from work, rebalance that. So it's going to vary among each person on their job.
Yeah. As
But
long as they're,
irrespective of that, they have to have a heart that's full of love constantly. Because if even if it's open a little bit, sometimes you have to close it a bit, but they have to have that love there underlying, because that's going to enable them to reconnect. If they don't have that love there, they're not going to be able to reconnect.
they
People
have
that,
to have a heart of love
yes,
constantly. So that flow always going, irrespective of what's going on in,
correct,
yeah.
correct. The people that teach fear in religion or in government, these are all people that it's destructive. They close people's hearts, they disconnect people. God punishes. That's a terrible thing.
Yeah. I couldn't
God
agree
didn't create
more.
us. All these things, the hate, the fear, all these things are disconnection. It's to control people. It creates the negative things. So if you want to fix it, you have to make sure your heart is always open with love. Maybe you can't do it all the way open, but there has to be a love there somewhere. Because if there's not, you're basically dead.
You're basically dead.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're spiritually dead,
Yes.
what's the point of being here? I mean, what It's
Um,
got to be nothing less than just a miserable life of hatred.
I don't know why it exists or why people do that, but there are a lot of people that think that um, for some reason they think that's their life, and they buy into it. Millions of people buy into hate and fear, um, and they don't understand what they're actually doing.
Yeah.
Um, and for a lot of those people, it's very difficult to explain to them that they're doing anything wrong, because there seems to be a part of them that's just cut off, and has it's a point of no return.
Yes. I, I'm not sure about speaking to the hatred aside from just lack of love and
Mm.
self-love, but I would imagine that one of the reasons why people don't turn the other direction is just the conditioning. And you kind of said it, just even religious leaders, even the
Mm-hmm.
way the Torah and the Bible has been translated
Mm-hmm.
into God is, God is to be feared,
Mm-hmm.
instead of God is a God of love. It's like fear God. Everything was fear, fear. That was the
Mm-hmm.
conditioned mindset
Right.
that stuck. And it was almost like the imprint in every single
Mm-hmm.
human that was raised with any religion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was raised with religion and Judaism, but with love, not with that. So I don't understand the other side, but I see people buy into it, and when you do that, you actually create negative energy, which eventually creates the destruction. So
Yeah.
what we're seeing is really um, something that mankind has created, and if they don't change it, it will get worse. So it's a but then people don't take responsibility for it. And if they don't take responsibility, it doesn't get better
Yeah.
because you can't change it.
Not
And
It's funny, not only do I want to stop you there for a minute because of what you just
mm,
said, not only do I find that people don't take responsibility for it, but
mm,
that's often when I hear people turn and say, and blame it on God
mm-hmm,
and actually start to deny God because, like, how could God allow this to happen again? Or how can God do this or
right,
that? And that's a whole nother issue, which I think would, I imagine, breeds even more self-hate.
absolutely. See, I start with a point that I don't know why I exist. I don't know why the world was created, but I didn't create the world, not my problem. I didn't create society, not my problem. I didn't even create myself. It's not my problem. I'm God's problem. But I have a consciousness. I have whatever makeup, and I have to be responsible for who I am. Even though I don't understand the world, even though I don't understand why I'm here, I have to be responsible and do what I think is best in the most positive and balanced way. And if I do that and everyone does that, everything changes. If everyone does things out of love, even if they're loving the wrong thing, but if it's love, it's easy to shift it over from one thing to another.
Mm,
But it has
yeah.
to come from love.
Hmm. And speaking of love, I love that you said that a few years ago. I didn't create the world, so it's not my
Right.
problem. And I'm like, and I mean, I could laugh about it, but it's just so profound. And it also really puts your intentions, living life intentionally through the lens of I'm responsible then now for God, my creator put me here.
Mm-hmm.
This is the situation. And I'm responsible to navigate this with through love and of love and because of love.
Right.
Yeah. And that changes everything.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does.
And then not only will it change everything for you, but it will change everything for everything that is coming to you, or
Mm-hmm.
everything you're attracting, situations around you, your family, your friends, your neighborhood. It just basically immerses you in anything that's full of love and not hate.
Correct.
And so, looking at it, then, having said that from a large scale,
Hmm.
one might ask, and I know that many people do, because I mean, and you've studied the history of this and you speak so eloquently and you see this, you know how to bring this out and with the essence, the esoteric essence of it all. Why, oh, why do we look at the the Jewish culture and why do we look at Israel and say, how could this possibly, how could they possibly have this much conflict again?
The question isn't how could they have this conflict again? This has been building up over many years. They knew it would happen. Anyone with an open mind knew it was going to happen at some point. It was a question of when.
And almost it never even stopped. It just has been going on forever.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so then the question is why, from the lens of like love and hate, is there a pocket of self-hate amongst that community that it's attracting hate?
Well, there is a hate within the Jewish community between some people hate religion, some people are religious and hate not religious. Um, there's just hate, and if you don't transform or to change it, it eventually rears its ugly head.
Mm,
So everything's a matter of time. A lot of things take a lot of time before they express themselves, but if it's there, it's going to do something at some point. And the state of Israel has some very deep issues. They have I would say, a secular government that's very corrupt. They have a rabbinate that's corrupt. Um, America has a full corrupt leadership, the whole government. We have all the governments around the world. Wherever you look, the leadership is full of corruption. And Israel is no different. And a lot of things begin with Israel and end with Israel for whatever reason. Whether you believe God chose them or don't believe it, they are a center for whatever reason for what goes on in the world.
mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of things that they could have stopped by behaving differently. Um, they created a lot of things in one way. There's a lot that goes on,
Yeah.
and um, I can't say I know the answer because I don't. As I said, I didn't create it, so I can't really tell you. I can tell you things I learned from it. I can tell you things that I see, but I'll never understand why a creator created a world that has negative energy, that that has such destruction and such issues that we deal with. But for whatever reason, that's what we deal with. It doesn't matter why it's here because we still have to deal with it.
Mm-hmm. True.
And the and in order to deal with it, you have to know your own limitations. If you don't know your own limitations, then you cannot solve anything.
Mm-hmm.
Because only by knowing your limitations, then you know what you're able to do. And too many people are involved in thinking they can fix things that they're not capable of doing.
Yeah.
And too many people become leaders, but they're not leaders, at least not of building. So we have a society, for whatever reason, lives in a world of fiction that people can do all different things beyond what they are or not who they are. And so we have really a society of most people are not who they are. They're not connected with themselves. Oh, they think they are. I know who I am. Yes, on a superficial level, they may know because society says this is what you should be, and they are what society wants them to be. But that's not who
Exactly.
they really are.
Exactly.
Because as a child, at some point, who they are became blocked.
Yeah.
We forget who we were as babies and children. We're taught to fit in, 3, 4, 5, become what society wants you. And it's very painful. And you forget the pain of your childhood where you had to stop being yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you start hating everything because you can never figure out what the problem is because you have no conscious memory of it. You have a
Yes.
subconscious memory, not a conscious one. And so it society has become very complex because mankind has demanded people to be a certain way and not who they are,
Mm-hmm.
for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very painful to see.
Yeah.
Um, Even if I don't talk to people, just seeing people is painful because of what I pick up or what I feel.
The energy.
Hmm.
Yeah. The energy and
Yeah,
the sadness and the struggle and the pain and the
yeah,
suffering. Yeah. And even to go beyond that, I believe, I don't know how you feel about this, and I'm sure you align with it, but when one of the reasons why people don't remember who they are is because they forgot that they come from and are made up of and are the essence of love and your creator.
right. Hmm. Yeah.
Full stop.
Mhm.
And looking at it in the external world, and like as far as speaking as from the human conditions and conditioning, the other reason why they forget who they are from an external view is
Mhm.
that I find that when children are really innately can express who they are, they know who they are, they don't need to explain it to everyone. And then once they get to a certain age, maybe middle school, suddenly it's, who should I be so that I'm accepted? Who should I be so that I can get along and fit in? Who should I be for my mother? Who should I be for my father? Who should I be for this person that I want to love me? Who should I be for my rabbi? Who should I be for my pastor? Who should I be for my children? Who should I be for the person that, the people that I employ, or the person that I work for? And it starts from like a very young age where all of a sudden you're in school and, oh, I don't feel really comfortable in this costume. Like, I don't feel comfortable in who I am anymore. I feel like I need to squeeze into this costume so that I fit in.
Hmm. Yeah.
And you don't fit in as you go on, years go on, decades. All of a sudden you wake up and you're like, I don't even know who I am. I don't even fit in this costume.
Yeah. And there's another aspect to that is that I see many people look to be successful in life, and then they find there's something missing, and they don't know what it is. Why is something missing? What is that thing that's missing? And then they can never find it because they don't know where to look for it.
Mm. Now you're going to my niche as a coach. that's
Oh,
that's
okay.
my client, is the
Hmm.
successful person
Hmm.
that it looks like you had everything. You've got there, right? You climb that ladder, everything is kumbaya, but something's missing in my life.
Yeah.
Of course, you know, and I know it's the creator and love,
Yes.
and living through love, through the lens of love, right?
Yes.
Mm. Because what you do really is, you know, your purpose isn't your career, right?
No. But
But it's driven by your purpose, which should always be love.
if I have a feeling of love, if my heart is open all the time and I feel love, I want to express it also.
Yeah.
And that's another problem, that people attach things to the love and they think that's the love, but it's not. It's an expression from it, but it's not. And the love has to be pure all the time. not attached to anything.
Could you
Yes.
unpack that a little bit? What that means, attach things to the love?
Okay. If I have a tremendous feeling for something, I want to do something. I want to express it. I want to do something about it, which is okay because otherwise you go crazy if you can't express it or do something. You have to, doing something is a balance because the love, the love is, the essence of love is being one with yourself, means you're one with all creation. And if you're one with all creation, you want to show the love to all creation, share it with all creation. It's not a matter of how or what, you just want to give it in the form of that feeling. But others don't know how to accept it in that feeling because their hearts are not fully open to love. And so you look for all different channels and ways to do it, and you become frustrated as well.
Mm. Hmm. Because then you
And
start to look for something to attach to that, so people are open
to getting
to your
something,
love, to getting something. Hmm.
but then you lose something because you can't stay in your connection.
Mm.
And so there's an aspect of just being at one with all existence. And you don't need to do anything. And the reason is very simple. Every moment is a new creation. When you're on the deepest level, everything is always shifting. And therefore, every moment has a new shift and a new balance, a new expression of life. And if you're in the place of love, you just flow with a constant explosion of love. The sun is constantly exploding.
Yeah.
But once you step out of that, it becomes a little bit of a imbalance.
Hmm. Because you're not present anymore.
Correct.
Yeah. One of the things that personally grounds me if I'm feeling imbalance
Right.
is just going back to presence, going back to the breath. If I'm even
Mm-hmm.
having trouble getting to presence, go back to the breath.
Right.
And that's presence.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to just stop in a quiet room,
Correct.
to be able to look at a flower.
So let's go back to the beginning of our conversation, or early in the conversation, to people who are going through all the trauma, all the pains and everything now. Is what they can do for themselves is take that breath, take that step, and just stop for a moment to reconnect. They're aware of all the problems. You know the problems. You don't have to talk about it. Reconnect to beyond it, to the universe. And then when you come back to deal with the issues, you'll have a better balance.
Yeah, because you're navigating that in a state of conscious
Right.
presence.
Right.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's just, yeah, why should that situation be any different than any other, right?
It's not.
War is war, hate
Mhm.
is hate.
Yes.
Yeah, that's profound. And what's really interesting is it is that simple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that to me is where people might see that it gets esoteric, because it invites someone and reminds you that there's so much more to this outside situation, even to this body that houses the soul. There's so much more to this conscious presence. And in
Correct.
that awareness and knowing, there's kind of a space around that struggle and that disturbance that comes along with that awareness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's almost like if you're you're talking to someone that feels like they're really out of their mind over something, and perhaps they are. But then once you can invite them to say, okay, so this is a really crazy, challenging struggle and situation. But if you were just an acceptance of it and just took a breath and said, okay, this is what's going on. That's the space I'm talking about where like it doesn't make it go away, but that space of awareness, that of acceptance and in that conscious presence that just makes it a little less uneasy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. Do we remain in prayer? Obviously we do, but do we remain in prayer for love then as the ultimate goal and harmony?
Prayer is not just about asking for what you want. The main aspect of prayer in Judaism is about bonding, connecting yourself with the Creator and with the Source. It's a quiet time for yourself to connect. And so if prayer to you means connecting with the source of life, with the Creator, then that's the right thing to do.
Yeah. We're taught that prayer is asking. For me, and that's a really good point you bring up. For me personally, there's praying and then there's meditating with God as someone I'm connected with. And so for me, and to me, that's listening to God, not asking. Nothing. There's nothing going on in here in my brain. It's only just being connected and open to listening. And in that listening.
Yes. Well, that's another aspect which people need to learn, is to learn how to listen.
Yeah.
But people get their own agenda, thoughts, and emotions in the way, and they don't realize that they're not listening.
Yeah. Which stems into maybe lack of just, and humility to me is huge.
Yes.
Someone had said to me recently, if you're the most interesting person in the room, then you're actually in the wrong room. And I love that. And so how can our listening to God bring better energy, bring loving energy to other countries then, specifically the ones at war right now?
Because, as you mentioned, in order to listen, you have to be humble. Not the false humbleness that people have, humility, but you really have to be humble and really let go of yourself and give it over to the one you love, to the Creator.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you become one, and you just hear. You're not in the you don't not in the way of anything.
Yeah. And I think trust starts to happen too.
Oh yeah.
Right. How can
Total
it not?
trust.
Yeah. It's like, okay, you got it. You got this.
Yeah.
And then there's also the aspect, Rabbi Yossi, of what you said earlier about, okay, I didn't create this, but I do have to be responsible, right, for myself. So what would be a fundamental thing that someone can do to be responsible for themselves? Would it be in an external sense? Would it be to, don't say something like, oh, I'm not going to vote. What's the point? And take responsibility and vote in a leader that is representing love. Like, what would any of that look like?
I don't know if that's necessarily so, because whoever you vote for is corrupt, one way or the other. But yes,
Okay.
sometimes you have to take responsibility because there is someone who will do something, at least improve it rather than destroy it. It's very different. It's how you absorb things. For example, in order to absorb God's word of the Torah, the Hebrew words, you have to come to it with humbleness and humility. Otherwise, you do what most people do. They intellectualize it and have bigger egos and think they're religious and think they know God and are really disconnected.
Yeah.
So it starts with a humbleness in how you connect with things, connect with people, connect with the things around you, um, connect with Torah. And it says you can only with Torah, if you're humble, you can then absorb it. If you're not, you don't absorb the holiness and the connection.
Yeah. It's
So
interesting because that's something that I just always, I don't know if it's innate or just in learning, but yeah, humility is huge for me.
yeah,
Really was a life changer for me.
yes. And I think it's in any relationship. If you have it, you can build on the relationship irrespective of differences. And if you don't have it, things get in the way.
Yeah. Including the relationship with yourself.
Yeah,
Like, you
definitely.
know what? I guess I didn't have all the answers. You know what? Maybe I didn't know how to do that. Or, you know what? Maybe I wasn't listening to my creator.
Or, yeah, or this is the way God created me. Let me see what I can do with it.
Yeah. Again, the acceptance, that
Yeah,
acceptance thing, right?
yeah.
Yeah. And so if they're not experiencing in Israel peace, however, they can come to that awareness and acceptance that gives them that space to at least like be present and just be and see that life is much more than what's going on in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is that is that pretty much the distinction that would help people today?
I don't know. Yes, for some people it will help.
Okay.
For others, it won't help. Not everyone is the same. Not everyone works the same way. And in Israel, they've been living under tremendous pressure since the beginning of the state. And when people live under constant pressure, it really throws them off.
Mm,
And so there are a lot of different issues. And so, really, I think it's about understanding the different issues that you have and saying, okay, where do I start from? So you can't change everything at once. We're complex. But if we do one issue at a time, with a direction, we can go there. But we have to become responsible and aware
mhm.
and do one thing at a time, not expect that we're going to rebuild ourselves in one day.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Almost like multitasking, right? Failing at many things
It's
at the same time. We're not going to build, right? Rome wasn't built in a day, but
correct.
it's true.
And life is a journey. So it's not about completing the journey today, it's about going the journey.
Yeah. So going back to the top of your discussion about it it seems to me that what you're saying is to look through this and be in acceptance of this as a journey.
Correct. Absolutely.
And if that journey feels very unpredictable and uncertain for many people, particularly the Jews, they can lean in on just conscious presence
Yes, they can.
and their connection with the
Yes.
creator.
Yes. Because one of the ways of dealing with any situation is going beyond the situation where it doesn't matter what happens. And then you can come back and look at it from a different lens and create some movement of balance.
Well, there you go. Beyond the current situation. That's why you're
Correct.
here, Rabbi. But it's true.
Yeah.
That and I love that you really underscored that because that's the heart of this podcast, to give people insight on how to go beyond their current situation, any situation.
Yeah.
Could be something really small, but maybe we judge it or I judge it to be really small, but it's really big for someone.
Yeah.
And then maybe there's something really big like war that someone in another part of the world would be like, yeah, it happens all the time. I mean, honestly, people are in their own worlds. Some people, they're just somewhat oblivious to the suffering that goes on in the world,
Yes.
Including the poverty, right? We complain about this and that, and there's
But the poverty is man-made also.
exactly man-made. In my opinion, actually, it's a fact. We have enough resources on Mother Earth to feed everyone.
Absolutely.
But the hatred stops that.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you look at it, when you go beyond and you really go beyond and look for the core reasons. So then let me ask you something else attached to that. If we know that the core reason is because of the self-hate, so to speak, and lack of connection and lack of self-love and expressing love to others, what would I forgot my train of thought. Something that you said. Oh, what would it take, or what would we be able to understand as far as shifting, or like your grandfather said, turning the other direction into collective compassion, so that people are not so oblivious around Mother Earth? And because I firmly believe that if we all really connect, that connection could ease someone else's pain so that they're not suffering so much in a collective way.
Well, there are many people who have tried to change collective consciousness with huge groups.
Yeah.
This has gone on many times.
Mm-hmm.
And they achieve something, but they can't change everything. See, you have to understand the limitations. As we said, we didn't create the world. None of these people created the world either. We can create shifts, but we didn't create it. For some reason, the creator made this world to have both sides.
Yeah.
So unless the creator changes that, we cannot change it.
Yeah.
We
I
can only choose to be which side we're on.
I I agree. I've seen it. I've even been part of a couple of groups that have proven that scientifically and esoterically this can be done. Yes, but, or yes, and
Right.
it might not ever happen in your lifetime or my lifetime. And in fact, humans may destroy the earth, right? The world, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
I know that you and I align with that. And so it doesn't mean we should stop putting our hearts there, but I like how you keep saying that, know your limitations, because everyone seems to think that they're fighting the cause against this and they're fighting the cause against that. And at the end of the day, you're fighting something that's bigger than you. Not to say you should be giving up, but then what should you be doing?
Correct.
Yeah. Again, it's back to those focus on one thing at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I want to be, a global speaker. Well, why do I want to be a global speaker? I have plenty of places that haven't been tapped into with my message right here in New York. Like, why do I need to go around the globe? Hmm. So, is there a connection that you see from what's going on today and what went on in the beginning of time with Israel? How many times have I even read, right? In the Torah, the Old Testament, how many times has God given grace to this tribe and that tribe, and then they destroy each other and then they come back? And could you speak to that a little bit?
Okay.
Couple of minutes.
All right. When there was the revelation of God at Mount Sinai with the two tablets, um, the whole world actually became rebalanced at that moment. And then the Jewish people said, we can't handle a direct connection with God. We want Moses to be an intermediary. And that brought imbalance back to everything again. And it took away protection that the Jews had in the balance and that the world had. And because they didn't want that connection, a direct connection anyway, we've been suffering ever since. When the Jews went into Israel, they wanted to be like the other nations. They didn't serve God most of the time. They did a lot of things. And even now, most Jews are not religious and don't serve God. They serve themselves. And so since that time, it's been imbalanced because people don't want their own personal direct connection with the God. They want a Messiah in between. They want a leader in between. They want someone else to make the connection. People have to stop doing that. Become responsible for your own connection with God directly, not through someone else or something else. As long as you give power to something else, everything's going to be out of balance, out of whack. It's only It only goes to balance if your connection is direct, the way it should be, because God is part of us. God is part of every person internally. So unless you connect with that, how do you expect balance to come?
Wow. That just puts a bow around this entire message today.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for being here.
It's okay.
Such profound insight. And I just thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking the time to be here today.
You're welcome. It's always a pleasure being with you.
Thank you. Love you.
You too.
Bye.